Did what? Oh, leave it. They don't seem to have noticed. I've told you, we don't have any beds. We don't have any trolleys.
But I think my father's had an heart attack.
Well, if you're prepared to pay £1.
essentially think about it like if they'll say, like particularly with the banks, like the fact that in a lot of countries, say for Ireland for example, we got absolutely fucking shafted in Ireland because they bailed out the banks. And it's again this hypocrisy of like, billionaires are the ones who are talking about, well, socialism doesn't work, but it's essentially socialism when you're bailing out banks with billions and billions of dollars because they're quote unquote too big to fail, and are so important. Like so,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah. So it's again it's absolutely hand in hand. I'm just when I was saying about the lack of regulation, like for example, I just think personally, like when we're talking about wealth inequality, that's what neoliberalism has really. That's the kind of been the end result that has really spurred that on, the huge increase in wealth inequality, because again the whole propaganda, the whole like idea around it was, oh well, it'll trickle down, eventually, because these corporations are making so much money, much more money in the stock market. Stock market is booming, and you're saying that, oh well, that eventually trickle down to working class people. It's been a lie that's been told since the 80s.
What,
And we've seen wealth inequality increase for decades now.
but
And
what's
obviously with
strange
COVID,
about what you're
that's the
saying
huge
is
impact of
that
the cost of
in the
living with
past
inflation.
20 years and following Blair's government, New Labour, all we've seen is more and more and more regulation, and you're saying inequality is this major problem, and inequality has only increased since there's been more and more and more regulation, and it seems more that the issue is the government.
That's called a correlation causation fallacy.
I'm not saying that it's necessarily causal. I'm just saying that if there's an inverse relationship to the relationship that you're describing, then it goes against your argument. If you're saying
No.
that this is caused by lack of government regulation, but there's been more government regulation, that undermines your argument.
No, well, has there been, like, in terms of, I suppose it depends what that regulation is. Like, there's obviously
Yeah.
been much more regulation. Like, think about it, for example, like stuff like the environment, EPA, and like stuff like national parks and stuff. Like, for a lot of while, like, there's a lot of stuff with the way science progresses. New kind of stuff is given more important. Like, for example, biodiversity. Another way you kind of have councils. Obviously, we have it over here in Ireland, but I'd say in the UK where you have like local councils kind of promoting biodiversity, where you have like instead of cutting everything like you usually would for the summer, you leave it to grow and actually let habitats come back in terms of bees and that kind of stuff. So you're kind of seeing stuff emerge that wasn't really seen as important in the 80s or 90s. So I think it's the regulation and obviously legislation to set up these different companies. Stuff is going to be differently prioritized, but like I'm just saying that was the genesis, if that makes sense, was the 1980s and this idea of let's remove all regulations.
Oh, you mean like
let
the
these
Thatcher
companies
era?
thrive. Yes, Thatcher, and obviously in the US with Ronald Reagan.
But we've come quite a
obviously,
way
if you-
since the Thatcher era. I would argue
Oh,
that
yeah,
we've
for
pretty
sure,
much done
but
a
also-
180-degree turn in terms of how the government functions. It's far more bureaucratic now. So many of the issues that existed in the UK in the 80s, those are definitely not the same issues that exist today. And I would argue that the issues that exist today are way more because of bureaucracy and regulation and government sticking their nose where it doesn't belong. Even I would say the 2008 crisis where they bailed out the banks, that was, I don't think that the government handled that properly. There was no real penalization of the organizations that did that to the public. So I think government mainly is the problem, but you seem to think that we should give them more powers.
Do I think we should give the government more powers?
Yeah, because by allowing them to create more legislation
So
and,
you
and
just
take
put
more
up
tax
the-
money, we're giving them more power. No?
Yeah, for sure. Like personally, I think again at the end of the day, it's how the government is either not holding companies to account or is or whatever. So I think, like personally for me, it's corporations again have been, I think, been let on a huge leash for decades. Let to do whatever the fuck they want, fuck people over. Obviously, the other huge part of neoliberalism, which came along with it, was the attack on unions, and especially in the US, like basically unions were destroyed from the 80s, including into the 90s. There has thankfully been a resurgence of which kind of trade union movement in the US. It's not like the same scale it used to be. But think about it, in like the 60s and 70s, like the Teamsters unions were huge. Like they had a real political power. And so that was the other part of it as well, was, oh yeah, okay, so how we're going to dismantle it is obviously let these big businesses bring down the guardrails and have less regulation, but we're also going to destroy unions to basically mean workers have much less of a voice, much less rights in terms of what they can do and how they can.
But the thing is, bro, that's not the current status quo now in the UK. So how can you attribute the problems that exist now in the UK to a bygone era, to the issues of a bygone era? What you're describing is not the current state of the UK, where there's no unions and there's no workers' rights and there's well, it's actually the opposite. So how can you attribute the problems of now to those things?
Well, there's a big elephant in the room for what's happening in the UK. I'm sure you can guess what it is, right?
What would you say it is?
Brexit.
You think that the issues in the UK are caused by Brexit?
Quite a lot of it, yes, absolutely. Brexit was a catastrophic economic decision that the UK made. For example, firstly, this idea that the UK was going to take back control of its borders has been a complete disaster. If anything, the immigration crisis and issues have gotten even worse in the UK since they left the EU.
Yeah.
Not being part of the single market is a huge issue. Like, for example, because the Republic of Ireland is part of the EU, we're like, obviously in Dublin we already have like headquarters of Facebook, Meta, Google, etc. But it's only going to make the move to here or wherever, Germany, somewhere else, even more prominent, because England is not, or not England, the UK is not part of the single market. So that's been pretty catastrophic, and having to do deals with countries individually or Canada here and whatever. It's been a huge, like there's we've seen the strength of the sterling.
So aren't you basically saying though that because the government actually didn't do what the people wanted, that it failed? So it's not actually Brexit that caused those issues. It was the fact that the government didn't implement Brexit in the way that the voters actually had wanted it to be implemented. Like, do you think that
what did they not implement?
Well, Brexit was essentially about control of the borders. It was about reducing net migration for many people. In fact, probably for most people. I think they've done polls, and most people say that the reason why they voted out of Europe is because they wanted to have more controls on immigration. And if subsequent, when was Brexit? Was it how long? It's a few years ago now. Like, what, 8 years? How long ago?
2016, I believe.
2016, yeah, like eight, 9 years. Yeah, so if since then we've had multiple years in the hundreds of thousands of net migration, and we didn't get back sovereignty. We haven't created anything that has given the UK citizens more autonomy, more sovereign rights. In other words, like a Bill of Rights, like what Reform is proposing. If we haven't created anything like that, we haven't got a proper plan to transform the country following Brexit, and then obviously it's going to fail. It's like saying, oh yeah, I'm going to bake a cake, and then you just don't put the ingredients in and be like, oh, the cake didn't work. See, cake's terrible. Well, no, if you did cake right, it probably would be pretty good.
So what did the government not do specifically around immigration?
Well, they've let
around immigration. You think the UK government didn't do, or what would you?
Well, they're still deliberately letting hundreds of thousands of people. Can you hear me? They're still deliberately letting hundreds of thousands of people into the country, and it's not sustainable.
Yeah, sorry, it was just a bit of delay.
It's not sustainable, and the government policies are not addressing the root of the problem pretty much in any way in terms of why people have issues with immigration, the strain on goods and the strain on services in the UK. Everything seems to just get blamed on lack of funding, and sometimes it is lack of funding. But lack of in funding our public services more and funding the government more is not going to solve the issues if the government policy is wrong.
So, but you'd rather them just completely close the borders?
I think that I'm not against immigration. I think immigration can work well, but it depends on how you do it. Immigration has worked to a great extent in the United States, but when Biden opens the borders and lets millions of people across the borders,
how did he open the borders?
He stopped Remain in Mexico, which was a policy that Trump had.
You know why that was brought in because of COVID, right?
What, Remain in Mexico? Well, no, Trump had remained in Mexico in his previous term.
Yeah, and
So-
that's what I'm saying.
But why
He
did
was-
Biden get rid of Remain in Mexico and allow millions of people to cross the border? Why didn't he declare a humanitarian crisis? Why didn't he declare a state of emergency? He didn't do anything to address the hundreds of thousands of people, or in fact millions of people coming across the border. So it's not that immigration is bad, it's that you can't just let millions or hundreds of thousands of people into a country and think that that's not going to have a profound effect on the population, and even on the morale and the culture of the people in the country. And that's kind of what's happening as well in the UK. Now, I don't think that most of the issues in the UK are actually to do with immigration, but it shows that there's a lack of ability to solve problems in the UK government, and they constantly ask for more money instead of actually being creative with how they're solving problems.
But what's the solution to the problem?
I just kind of told you, stop letting hundreds of thousands of people in, and
So, but that's mean just completely shut the border. Is that
well,
what I'm saying?
they could. I don't think they should shut the border, but there's a difference between having 500k people come in net migration and having 50,000 people or 100,000 people. There's a massive difference, and you know that. And
No, but so do you break international law? Say, for example, you have asylum seekers coming in, and say you have a quota or a target, right? And say you're above that, and you have someone coming in who has a genuine asylum claim, and from a place where there's conflict, from Syria or whatever, and then you say, sorry, we've hit our quota, so you're just going to get shipped back to Syria because we have a quota, and sorry, that's it. Denying them seeking asylum, which again, that would be breaking international law to do that. Is that a good solution?
so there's two things to address there. First thing is international law more important than UK law? That's one thing, and if it is, then that
I would say so. Yes.
Well, if
yes.
it is, then that means that the UK is not even a sovereign nation. One, and two.
No.
Hold on. Let me just address what you're saying.
Yeah.
So there's the issue of whether the mandate of the British people is more important than international law. That's one thing. Then secondary to that, there's also the issue of if there are other ways to reduce net migration without breaking international law. So you must concede that you can reduce net migration numbers without breaking international law, right?
Well, you haven't given me the solution. What's the solution?
Well, the solution would be you could do offshore processing. Like that's something that they're considering doing in some of the other islands surrounding the UK. You could do offshore processing. They need to do more vetting of the claims. You can increase.
So maybe more like judges or people, the people who deal with it, I should say.
You can also change policy. So there's a lot of there's a student visa issue that a lot of, I think, where they were allowing people to bring their family members along with them when they come on a student visa. That was contributing a lot of people to the net migration numbers. So there are ways to solve immigration. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but it's clear that for the past, it's really the Tories that did it. It's clear that they deliberately did not address the numbers of people coming in. And if you're arguing that you can't reduce net migration numbers without somehow breaking international law, why is it that for the decades prior to the Tory government there wasn't hundreds of thousands of people coming across the border, and the UK was an even more inviting and attractive place to come and live and work, but there wasn't hundreds of thousands of people coming across the border back then?
Well, do you maybe think the geopolitical landscape has something to do with that?
What has changed about the geopolitical landscape? Are you talking about like some of the conflicts? Because
the
the people coming into the
war,
country
Syria.
are not, but those aren't those don't make up the bulk of the people coming from abroad. It's mainly people
but
from
then-
India, I believe.
Yeah, but
So there's
we
no
also have the
geopolitical
economic
situation in
thing. We
India
have
that
the-
warrants hundreds of thousands of people. And
but
I don't
think
think they're
about it-
seeking
think about
asylum
it, there
either.
has been global
Majority of the
inflation.
people coming that make up the net migration numbers are not asylum seekers. It's like
Yeah, no, I'm not
3k
saying
of them
they
that
are,
are
but-
asylum seekers.
But then we also have global inflation, which is going to hit poor countries more. So again, this is the knock-on effect of the pandemic. It's the same thing we saw in the US. The reason why under Biden's administration there was so much more migrants coming to the border was because of the impact of global inflation, the cost of living.
What you mean, like?
So that's
But again, even in the United States, many of the people coming were coming from India. Many of the people coming were coming from Mexico, and those are places that don't have.
I just told you.
But they don't have.
That's
But
correct.
you can't blame inflation for that, because again, even okay, let's look at the EU. Not every country in the EU is receiving hundreds of thousands of people across the border. At some point, it's it's about government policy. You can't keep blaming external factors. It's because the UK government didn't want to address the issue. They could have negotiated with other countries to reduce net migration. They could, and again, I'm not saying that, oh, immigration's bad. I'm not one of those people, but come on, bro. Like, 500k people down from what? Was it like 700, 800k people? How do you justify that? Net migration, that means that there was millions of people coming in the country because some people left. How do you justify in 1 year adding, what is it, basically like 1 or 2% to the whole total of the population? How do you justify that?
Well,
2% population increase from net migration. That's not from births, anything. From net migration, 2% increase in 1 year. Like, really?
Yeah, like my point is that this idea that there's some magic bullet to solve immigration is just, it's not true. Again, this is like the whole reason, as you said, a lot of people voted for Brexit because, oh, let's take back control of our borders, and surely, and again, the Tories haven't, as you said, were not able to actually deal with the issue, or were able to have a solution to the issue. So it's almost like it's not as easy as people think, that you just bring down the numbers, and again, then you have that issue of, you know, people who have a general asylum or even just want to be an economic migrant, whatever, have a better life, and then you say, oh no, sorry, we hit our quota. So it's like there's no silver bullet to immigration.
I don't think there's a silver bullet, but I think I've just given numerous solutions that are very feasible. And again, most of the people coming are not asylum seekers. But yeah, we've kind of covered this topic quite a lot, so I want to see if we can get some more people on. The numbers on the live have really like taken a hit, so I don't know if we was rambling or something like that. But thanks for your perspective. Maybe we'll speak again. We got
no problem.
We got to sort out what's going on here with the live. So people watching on YouTube, thanks for your support, by the way. As you can see, I'm able to change the screen as it goes. So actually, let me go back on this one. I want to do a reaction to some videos that I got lined up. So if you guys want to see the reactions, you can follow us on YouTube. This is just for the YouTubers, the YouTube viewers, and then we're going to continue.
I've told you, we don't have any beds. We don't have any trolleys.
But I think my father's had an heart attack.
Well, if you're prepared to pay £1.
Guys, if you want to see what I'm about to react to, check us out on YouTube at State of Deception. We got another guest waiting too.
Did what?
Hey bro, come back.
Hold on one sec, BuzzText. Hold on.
Keep going, Mr. Morrison, and we'll let you know as soon as one of the hospital's life support machines becomes available.
Thanks very much.
It's so funny how eerily accurate this video is to today, because I think this was filmed this cartoon was made like 10, 20 years ago, and all of this stuff is literally what this is like now. Manufactured decline.
I'm sorry, but there is a 22-month waiting list for hip operations. Alternatively, if you wanted to go private, it could be carried out, well, at the end of the rubber.
Let's just pause that there, because we got a guest up. I think when we get the guest up, I'll pause the videos that we're doing reaction to. What's up, BuzzText?
Hey mate, yeah, I didn't know your take on Tommy actually. What was it? What is it?
My take is that he's being clearly targeted by the UK establishment.
Let's go. That's so true. Like I said at the end of the chat we had yesterday, I agreed. The America is better. I'll be honest. I was kind of playing devil's advocate through a lot of it, but
fair enough.
I still stand on a little bit on the gun side of things. But again, you know, you probably know more about it than I do, so I take your word. But yeah, Tommy Robinson, bro. Obviously, he's come out. He's all over the world media, and he is being targeted. I mean, they've gone as far as to say, if anybody at all shares that video and they believe they've got it from the X account, Tommy Robinson could go back to prison. So that's a little bit like hostage. Yeah, that's like a hostage. That's like taking him hostage. If anything, you know, if that video gets reshared, he can go back to prison.
So I've actually got the video. I've got a video of him. This is him speaking for the first time since he's been released. But you guys, I don't know if you can hear it.
Has been released from prison.
Yeah, watch the video, bro.
Since its release.
Oh.
In today's video, we will watch the
I don't know if you
moment
guys
he is
can hear
released
this.
and the first time he speaks upon it. But first, hit the like button and subscribe
So what all
to the
these
channel
people
for
say
more.
is racist and all this kind of carry on. What are your thoughts?
Well, a lot of people don't know what's going on, like with regards to any of these topics. They just speak about them and they take the news's opinion as, reality. If you've been following the story of what's been happening to Tommy, it's quite tragic. And the UK establishment is absolutely ruthless. And I think even if you don't agree with him, it's important that we stand up when someone's rights are being violated or if they're being unfairly targeted by the state. I'm someone that's been targeted by the state, and I can tell you right now, you can't win when you go up against the state. It's like trying to fight 100 people at the same time. More, and those people all have the power, statutory powers that you don't have. They have the police in their pocket, so you can't win when you go against the state. So the only thing that can counter the state is the people. And if everybody rallied around Tommy, then he wouldn't be targeted as much as he is. Now, here's another issue with Tommy, is that he's alienated a lot of people through his rhetoric and through his delivery, and so a lot of people are turned off by him. And if you say anything about Tommy, they'll kind of be like, oh, you mean that racist guy? So, but people need to be given the chance to learn and grow, and I think he's changed a lot from who he was before. I just see him as a man who's trying to do right by his country. I don't agree with all of the things he says. In fact, I don't agree with a lot of the things that he says. I'm not a Zionist. I don't use substances. Like, I'm not necessarily like a quintessentially British guy. And I think that the stuff that he says about Muslims is quite incendiary, and in a way he kind of brings some of these issues on himself, but he has a right to say those things, and some of them are true. So that's a major issue for me.
Yeah, I think, but this is it, isn't it? You've kind of hit the nail on the head. Look, he should be able to criticise anything and anyone on the basis of free speech. But going back to the conversation we had the other day, we have lost it in the UK. So, let's be honest, Tommy Robinson got put into prison, a Category A prison, where they hold some of the biggest teas this country's ever seen. Yeah. And in solitary confinement, mind you. And left him in there. And they said they kept him in there for his own safety. Okay, well, for his own safety. There was quite a few other punishments he could have had for sharing that video. Yeah. It didn't need to be prison, did it?
Well, it wasn't. The thing is, with the solitary confinement argument, he didn't really have a case to be removed from solitary confinement because he received a sentence in reduction because he stated that he was at risk of harm when he in going to prison. So you can't have it both ways. You can't tell the court that you're at risk of harm and therefore you need a sentencing reduction, and then when they say you're at risk of harm, therefore we're putting you in solitary confinement, you can't then say no, I'm not at risk of harm, take me out of solitary confinement. So that's why he wasn't. That's why he was kept in solitary confinement.
Well, you say that, but they put him in a Category A prison where the M's are and T's are the biggest. The UK's prolific criminals.
Yeah.
You could have put him in a Category D prison, where it's an open prison, where people are not going to be as aggressive and hurtful and harmful and all the rest of it, right?
No, I don't agree with that, definitely not. But I'm just saying on the point about why he was in solitary confinement.
Yeah, but if they didn't put him, if they put him in a Category D, he wouldn't need a solitary confinement. And that's what I mean. He
would. Come on, bro. Like if you look at the demographics of prison, there's a lot of people who he would have been offended, or who would have been offended by his rhetoric. And he's definitely a vulnerable person. He's probably one of the most vulnerable people in the country in terms of people who are not children or disabled or victims otherwise.
The thing is, him being on the wings, bro, it could have caused a lot of division, and even if nothing happened to him, it's the fact that it could have caused a bit of riots even inside of prison, right? Just for him being there. Yeah. So I do see where you're coming from, but what you also need to think about is his mental health, bro. I mean, I don't know anybody who's ever been in solitary confinement for 9 months.
Yeah, and I think that's not the first time he's been in solitary confinement, is it?
Not for that, bro. The 9 months, I've never known anyone. I mean, Charles Bronson, he's another one, but he's still in prison now. He's never unalived anybody. Yeah. So he's been in there for 50 odd years, never unalived anyone.
Do you think they're trying to psychologically break Tommy?
For sure. But I'll be honest, man. I don't want to say this. I could be wrong, but I seem to think they they don't want anything bad to happen to him. I think they need him. Remember when he told the story when one of the Secret Service came in and spoken to him?
Yeah, I remember that.
And they said, look, I want you to unite the left and the right. You're the man to do it. I think there's still either, I don't know what objective, but I think they need him for something. And he's unbreakable. Listen, there's people in MI6 who would have broke by now. There's people in Secret Service who would have broke. You know, all the people would have broke by now. But he is showing so much. I tell you, he is a. Don't mean to be rude, but he's a wet dream to MI6. He is, because this is what people they want. They want people like him.
Why do you think they want people like him?
Because he's so defiant. He stands for what he believes in, and he wouldn't say a word. He'd never grass on another person. If he was under pressure by another organisation, he wouldn't speak. You know, you hear these stories all the time in Secret Service where people are leaking information because they're scared under pressure.
Yeah.
Tommy wouldn't ever do that. You know, I feel like he is always going to be protected, and I think him being in prison is, like you say, it's for his own protection as well, because I don't think they want anything bad to happen.
Do you think that there's a part of the establishment that does actually side with him? Like, you know, there's different factions. Do you think maybe like some of the intelligence services or some of the Zionists or whatever, do you think that they actually are in favor of him, and then you've got other like parts of the leftist establishment that are totally against him, and then he's kind of just being used as a tool of the culture war?
1,000,000%. I agree.
I think that's right.
I think there's a lot of MPs out there who stood side with him, but they can't. They don't speak. You know, people who have spoken up have lost their bank accounts. Have seen what happened to Nigel Farage when he was swaying towards Tommy Robinson. His bank account went down. Katie Hopkins, her bank account went. She's lost her house and everything because of it. So people who sway towards Tommy have lost things, so they don't do it. And it was kind of a message to the wider. But people saying, look, yeah, you might be right, but you speak out loud where your bank's going, your houses are going, your family's going to get, you know what I mean?
The thing that's so weird, the thing that I find so weird about Tommy is that I don't even agree with half the stuff he says. Like, the stuff he says about the small boats is so like inaccurate and misleading, and I don't understand what he really wants. That's another thing.
What has he said? What's misleading?
So so he makes it seem like the immigration problem in the UK is because of small boats coming across the channel, and that's not accurate. There's only like 3,000 people that came into the country last year through illegal immigration means, and
no, I don't think that's true.
No, that is true. I looked at the numbers the other day. So because it's a net number, so there's more people. I think it's like maybe like 20,000 or something, and then of those 20,000, like 8k got shipped back, and then like another like 10k repatriated themselves. So the actual number of people, that net number of people that came into the country illegally, is not very high. The main issue of immigration in the UK is legal immigration in terms of demographic change, strain on the services. But Tommy misrepresents what the immigration argument is about. One, two, I think he overestimates the issue of extreme Islam. Not that it's not an issue, but he overestimates how much it's an issue compared to other things in the UK, and he underestimates how many Muslims actually have liberal ideas but don't really express them publicly because of cultural stigma. There's a lot of liberal Muslims, but he underrepresents those people and overestimates the effect of extremists, because extremism is a problem, but there's other really serious problems in the UK.
Can we go back to the first one and then we'll move on, right?
Sure.
So you talk about the immigration.
Yeah.
I think Tommy Robinson's on the right side of history on this, because what's happening now, and I know immigration's been happening for all our lives, and it'll always be, but I think what's happening now is on a next scale. So the money and everything's being spent. So what I'm saying is, money like that being spent without our even they didn't ask us, they didn't put to a vote.
Exactly.
So Tommy Robinson's got a right to say, look, if he'd have put it to a vote and people said, yeah, let's do it, then that would have shut people like Tommy up. But it's almost as if the government are just pulling at our strings. It's growing Tommy Robinson. The more they're doing that, it's making Tommy Robinson the star he is, and it's making him have so much views, because people are like, I'm not putting up with this. Once upon a time, I used to walk through my town centre, and it used to be everyone helping each other out, from Muslims to Sikhs to English. Now we've got a bunch of men stood outside hotels stirring at young women.
This is what I'm talking about. So so you got the issue of what he's talking about in terms of immigration in general. can't fault it. Of course, 500,000 people, 700,000 people coming into the country net in 1 year is insane, yeah? But then you've got the other side of it, which is the illegal part. So that's what I'm saying. He's misrepresenting the illegal immigration part to make it seem like it's a bigger issue than it is. That's one. Two, then you got the rhetoric around like, oh, now the cultural change, and you got these people staring at women. Dude, there's cultural issues in the UK that don't have anything to do with people staring. Like, let's take for example the SEAL revolution, like that happened in the 60s in the UK. Since the 60s, 70s, 80s, you've seen people, they wear less clothes when they go out. They're more there's less like social stigma and shame about certain behaviors. That stuff existed before immigrants started coming into the country. So you can't act like the only reason for the cultural change and people ogling at women outside is because they're brown and they've come into the country. Like, that's just I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying that they use these like buzzwords or like, I guess, these red kind of herring arguments to incite a certain feeling in the native population, and I don't think that it's conducive to actually solving issues. It more stirs up the problem, and it goes back to what I'm saying about how he's a tool of the culture war. Because if he represented the argument properly, people might be like, oh, actually Tommy's making sense, maybe we shouldn't be fighting each other and we should solve this issue of immigration. But they don't want that to happen. They want people on X going on about, oh yeah, this one's ogling at my woman, and they want people going, oh yeah, get those small boats out. But half of these things are not actually the core of the issue. The core of the issue is that the government lets hundreds of thousands of people come into the country legally.
Well, you say legally. It's not legal when they've not got no passports and they're coming over on a boat. That's not legal.
That's not the majority of people coming over. That's the point I'm making. Majority of the immigration issue is a legal immigration issue. It's not an illegal immigration issue.
Yeah. So I just want to. So let's look at this a little bit deeper, then, right?
Yeah.
So the reason they're leaving their country is because of suppression, or because of the war going on, or something bad's happened there, right? It's a mess. Okay. The fact that it's a mess is because of people like our country who have gone over there and done bad things.
Wait. Are you talking about the illegal immigrant or like asylum seekers, let's say? Or are you talking about... Because economic migrants typically leave their country just because they want more money.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about asylum seekers.
Okay. Asylum seekers,
so they're coming here for a better life because of the life they're living there. It's all blown to bits or whatever it may be. Okay, would you agree?
Sure. I mean, that's what they argue.
Yeah, but that's why they're here. That's what the big message is. Would you not want a better life after what the countries have done?
Sure,
right?
Sure.
So my message is this: if you lived in that country, and God forbid your parents, your uncle, your brother, your family was unalived in a war, and then you got the opportunity as a young strapping lad as you are, got the opportunity now to go to that country, right? Are you going to go to that country and love it, or are you going to go to that country and hate it for what they've done to your family?
It depends where I'm coming from. If I'm coming from a place like that, then I probably would have an issue with the country, and I'll be going there,
So these people who are coming from these countries with that kind of weight on the shoulder, knowing that their whole country has been, you've got to understand, these are not here for love and peace. Oh, thank you so much for blowing my country up. I appreciate it. Like, they're here to do one thing, I believe, and that is to cause carnage and have their revenge. Well, tell me, if someone unalived your parents or if someone unalived you're not going to go and shake the land, are you?
No, but most of the people that
army barracks in England,
most of the people that
army barracks in England and wherever go.
But most of the people that come as asylum seekers, they themselves will say, "Oh, I've gone through this, that, and the third in my country." But in reality, they're probably more likely to be economic migrants who actually just want to live in the UK. Most people who dislike the UK aren't coming to live in the UK. Most of those people are staying in their country.
You're right, they're not coming. Have you seen the video of the migrant who was in the hotel saying he was going to do that to kids?
I haven't seen that video.
Just if you're on X now, can you go to X a minute? I know this is only one thing, but he actually explains what he's doing there. So go to X, go to Tommy Robinson's X channel, scroll down, and there is a video. Please watch it. There's a migrant in a tent in Ireland, and he tells you what he's about to do and what he's there to do.
Okay, what video? Because I'm on his page right now.
Okay, so if you carry on scroll down, you will see, if you go to media, you'll see a guy, he's only got a couple of teeth in his mouth, but you'll see
Yeah, I don't know if there's any point in me watching it right now. You've kind of told me what it says. I can't play it on the live, but I take your point. Is that
he says I'm going to come for your children, and that's about it. Yeah, he said I'm going to come for your children, and trust me, I'm on my way. And you know what he even did? He went to a certain area in Ireland, and he said I'm going to be there now. Bring your kids. So this is he didn't seem drunk. He didn't seem off. He just seemed like he said, "You want war? I'm going to give you it." Now, let's say it's just that one man out of all of the thousands and maybe hundreds of thousands of men who've come over. That one is more than enough.
But do you realize that a lot of the people that come from these countries, because it says, I got it here, the top 5 countries of origin of people seeking asylum are Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, Bangladesh, and Syria. So right off the bat, Bangladesh.
How many of them have been the targets?
Hold on. Right off the bat, Pakistanis, Bangladesh, people from Bangladesh, those countries are not belligerents with the UK, so they have no reason to have anything against.
No, but they have a different.
Hold on. They don't have a reason to have anything against the native population. Then do you also realise that a lot of the people from the war-torn countries or the countries that are experiencing war, like Afghanistan, Iran, and Syria, those people are seeking asylum in these countries because they may have an issue with their own government. You understand?
At the time,
they're not against the UK. They're coming to the UK because they live in. They know, okay, UK versus my government, and they against their own government. That's why they want to go to the UK.
And you know this how though? Like, how do you know this?
It stands to reason, because it's like, for me, for example, like, I want to go and live in the USA. You wouldn't want to go and live. Typically, majority of people aren't going to want to go and live somewhere under the rules of a country that they hate. Most of them want to live in that country because they want a lifestyle like what that country provides. Majority of the kind of people that you're talking about, yes, of course, there's always going to be a small percentage of people that want to do harm to people. And if that guy said that, he shouldn't be granted asylum status. They should revoke his asylum status and send him to, you know what I mean? But see, this is what my problem with Tommy Robinson is, and I think it's the same issue I have of what you're saying is, you're acting like majority of the people that are coming over for asylum or legal immigration are like that. That's an isolated case, and you're using it to misrepresent what these people are coming for. Most of them are just economic migrants. We can solve the issue through policy without the rhetoric to make it the hysterical rhetoric.
Economic migrants, right? In a day like in a year like today, and the way the world is, right? These migrants, if they was needed, would they fight in our armed forces? If they was needed, would they fight for this country?
Probably not, but most people wouldn't fight for this country. Even if you polled young British people, probably 75%, 80% of them wouldn't fight for the country.
Their family, and they would.
They wouldn't. They've done. You think the average? Remember now. So are you talking about young men, or are you talking about men and women? Because majority of women, I argue, wouldn't want to be conscripted or fight. Men are slightly more likely to be conscripted and fight. Obviously, the immigrant population in the UK is not really that high. It's probably less than, I think we're probably like 23, 25, let's say 25%. And that includes Asian, white, non-British people. So we're at about 25% of non-native people in the country. And then of those, only about, let's say, 15% or 10% are going to be from countries where they don't even feel any kind of affinity or affiliation with Britain. Let's say like a Nigerian like myself or a Jamaican, they probably might have more allegiance to those countries, right? Okay, those people, if you do a poll of the British population, most people wouldn't fight in a war for Britain. Most people.
I get
now, that number of most people is not immigrants. That's majority the native population that would not fight. So your argument about, well, they wouldn't fight for the country, the native Brits wouldn't fight for the country.
Okay, most people may not, but I think we could likely say that none of them migrants would. That's what I'm saying. So,
well, you don't know that.
Well, we don't know that, but what we do know, okay,
but it's more likely, that they're less likely to. Yeah,
if we're being fair, that's more likely. So then it goes on to my next question: is I understand that there's a back catalogue now for 18 years, I think it is. It's taken now to sort the asylum out, getting into society properly, if that's where they want to stay. Now, this is the question to you: within them years, that's why you see them in tents now.
Yeah.
How much is it going to cost to keep them? Because remember, they can't get a job while they're in the middle of an asylum case. They can't because we've got to do background checks. So they can't pay it into the system for 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're going to be in limbo for 15 to 20 years while this backlog of applicants are going through. So what are we doing with them?
Bro, I'm not. I think that issue should be solved as well. Like,
But that's not going to be solved. We know that's the case. So
offshore, we could do offshore processing. Like, I think it's ridiculous that hundreds of thousands of people are able to come into the UK in a single year. I think it's ridiculous. I'm on the same side as you. I'm just talking about the way that Tommy presents his rhetoric and the effect that it has. I don't think it's criminal. I think he is being targeted by the government, but I think that he needs to be more responsible about how he's putting his message out, because it's not that he's just saying things that's hurting people's fifis. He's actually saying things that are misrepresentations. Like, he's talking about get them people on the small boat. That's ridiculous. Like, oh my god, get them people on the small boats out. Like, come on, bro. Like, you're talking to millions of people, and the dude uses drugs as well. Like, that's another thing about him that I think is an issue. It's like,
oh my gosh, thank you guys so much for 10k likes.
Oh wait, hold on, I got my 10k like thing playing.
More 1776 now, baby.
Yeah, that's my 10k likes target. Sorry, go on.
Well, what I'm saying is, so do all the politicians. I think they found 630 traces of cocaine in Parliament last year. So in the toilets. So, you know, they're all off the note. You know what I mean? So what I'm saying is, Tommy Robinson's a normal geezer. He's got to have flaws. No one's perfect.
I agree.
If he's on the old Charlie, and that's what he wants to do, let him be. But the thing is, as long as he's not harming anyone, not causing anyone trouble, I don't even know if he is. I mean, look at him. He looks very strong. He doesn't look like a man to me.
Mate, send me a top that says "Up Tommy Robinson." I'll flip and wear it. I can support someone who I disagree with. Do you get it? I'm just saying, like, I don't totally agree with the rhetoric that he puts out. I understand why he's putting it out. His aims for the country is not going to be the same as my aims for the country, because I'm a second, third generation immigrant. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's like, I understand him. He has a right to his opinions. He's definitely being targeted by the government, but he also needs to bear responsibility for how he's putting his rhetoric out, because you see, basically, I'm in a very similar position to him in the sense that the government is trying to imprison me for trying to expose what happened to my daughter in the neonatal hospital wards. Now, they put a court order on me saying I'm not allowed to make reference to certain things, yeah? Now, if I go out and start naming all these people on social media, I don't give an F, I'm going to say their name, and I go to prison, cool, people can support me, but why am I going to play into their hands? Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to just play into... You got to be smart with your tactics.
But when you've got the pressure of the people, like, if you had the pressure of the people who want the truth, and Tommy Robinson's all about truth, I think you may come out with that statement, but the fact is that you've got no one to prove that to, and I understand you've got evidence and you might have some stories to tell and all the rest of it. It might go viral, but the thing is, he has a full movement behind him.
Yeah.
Not to mention, so he's got that extra bit of support, if you would. If you went to prison, you might get a few posts and letters.
But why did he need to go to prison? Do you not? Could he have not got one of his mates to post that for him? Like, come on, bro.
He wanted to go to prison. He was happy enough to go.
There you go. So he wants to go to prison to prove a point. He's got kids. He's the average person now, when they're hearing him, that he's not. And I'm not. The thing is, I'm not trying to be tone police. Oh, say it this way so that you. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just saying, like, bro, you can't just throw yourself to the wolves. It's like the art of war, innit? Like, there's a way you have to deal with this, because I'm dealing with them, bro. These people are criminals. Like, the establishment, UK establishment, they're criminals. I know this. I'm fighting the same fight as him. But why am I gonna go and start talking about people's religion and stuff in a way that's, first of all, I think it's a misrepresentation. Yeah, one. Two, he's talking about the asylum seekers in a way that's a misrepresentation. Both of those things have major issues. There's major cultural conflict that makes sense to call out. But if you're going to call it out in the way that he's doing it and go to prison, you got my sympathy. But I'm still going to critique what you're doing and be like, even though you got my sympathy, bro, you got to do this. Like, if I probably could find, like, I know a couple people now just through my activism stuff. I could probably get someone that knows him or to speak to him. But, and I'm not saying I could, but I feel like, because I speak on this so much and I know a lot more people now, and like, that's the message I'll honestly pass on to him, is I'll be like, mate, like, don't throw yourself to the wolves.
What if he whispered in your ear? What if he whispered in your ear saying, listen, Emma, everything happens for a reason. And you may not know this, but I am doing what I'm doing to get to where I need to be. I'm sacrificing what I've got to sacrifice to get the message out. And if this is what I got to do, this is what I'm willing to do. And I feel.
But his message is wrong. Like, that's the thing that's so silly to me.
The message isn't wrong when he's talking about corruption.
He's talking about corruption. He's talking about cultural change. That message is right. His message is wrong when he's talking about the small boats. When he's talking about Islam, a lot of his message is right, but some of his message is wrong. If you're gonna go so hard, make sure your message is 100% right. And obviously, that's just my perspective. Like, because this guy, he has so much of a following and stuff. He could be pushing a message that really, really solves issues in the UK. Like the way that people support him. If you go BFAR, if you go Napa, people will be in crowds going, "Oh, Tommy, when they're on holiday." Everyone loves. So, but what if you got that kind of following? Why not push 100% accurate message? Why push a message that's diluted with misinformation?
I mean, misinformation. Okay, I mean, I'm yet to see what he said. What's misinformation,
bro? He's pranging. He was pranging on Twitter. Come on, bro. He's pranging on Twitter, looking like he's off his nut, going, "Get them small boats out of it." What? Like, what's up with that? Like, he's on about the small boats.
Like, frustrated because he's in the country he loves, going to rot. He was telling people
the small boats is. But as I've said to you, the small boats is not the main issue when it comes to immigration.
Hotels. He was like, "What are you doing? Why are we having them in the hotels? All this will stop." We now see England up in flames, and every, he doesn't want to see this. He's frustrated. It's rightly so. He's tried his best to not get it like this. He's told people, when you come to my marches, don't wear a mask. I want to see your face. I want everyone to see. And then at least if the police are there for infiltrating it, they're the only ones with a mask, and we know who they are.
Yeah, it is definitely corruption. It is definitely corruption. What they're doing, putting people in hotels. The guy that puts the people in the hotels, he became a billionaire last year, I think. Guy made like £700 million putting migrants to. So we can see the criminal racket. We know that he's got the best intentions, but I'm saying this is my final thing with it is don't let them trick you in that way, bro. Like, come on, you can be smarter than that. And I think he just needs to remember that change is inevitable. So you can't just be mad because
more
things are
outside
changing.
than he is inside. Is that what you're saying?
What?
He's needed more outside than he is inside, isn't it?
Yeah, and he needs to formulate his plan better and get his rhetoric in line so that he knows what he's saying and he knows what his objective is, instead of just stirring up people. You can stir up people, that's cool. Like they say, stir up waters to catch fish. But you're not catching the fish. You're stirring up the waters, you're not catching the fish. What's the point?
Do you think what he did with the group, the videos of the G gangs, they were good?
I think, again, see, this is my thing. The grooming gang thing, that's another thing that I feel like there's a lot of misinformation around it.
Did you watch the documentaries?
No, I haven't watched his documentaries.
Mate, honestly,
but bro,
when you don't hear me out, please let me finish this. Yeah. He goes up to police officers. He's got video footage of police officers taking money of Muslim men to cover up these white girls. Now think about that. He's got it all on camera. He's all there.
Do you know who did the grooming gang cover up? It's the councils in the UK. The councils in the UK
and he challenges them.
Listen to what I'm saying. The councils in the UK are not made up of Muslims. The reason why those places have such an issue with what they call grooming gangs from these areas is because those places are like 70% people from those areas. Do you understand? So that is a statistical feature. That's not some kind of targeted ring to attack on the British people, even though it is a de facto attack on the British people. But listen. Anywhere where there's P rings, that's how they operate, the same way as a grooming gang operates. All up and down the country. If you go to Blackpool, mate, there's rings on rings with the council involved in Blackpool, trafficking children like 90 going north. So this is a statistical feature that these areas have this percentage of people in it. That's why there's so many of those people in those areas that are part of these things. If you look at the statistics, the people there was a statistic going around like a certain percentage of, I think, Pakistani men from that area were convicted or likely to be part of a grooming gang. Bro, it was the same percentage as the white British population likely to be part of an organised PDF ring. So the rhetoric is important.
Mate, but you're missing the big point. This was a cover up on another scale.
Yeah.
You know, these rings in Blackpool and stuff like this, when they've been arrested, they get out, rightly so, all over the media within weeks. This cover up, social services, the police, and it has come out by facts.
Yeah.
They covered it up because they didn't want to be deemed to be racist. Now,
No. That was one statement made by one individual. They covered it up because the local councils are criminal gangs and they are the ones trafficking children. That's why they covered it up. And now what they do is they use the media machine to stir people up and deflect it onto Muslims. And in reality, they're covering it up because it's government corruption. They don't give a toss about Muslims, mate. They don't know, oh, we're going to be buddy with Muslims. They're just corrupt. It's like what they do with, like, let's say black gangs, right? The black gangs are connected to the Italian gang, connected to the Mexican gangs, connected to the cartels, connected to the governments. They're all involved. But what they do is when it's time to call people up for the crime, the people that get thrown under the bus are the people at the lowest rung of the criminal structure. So in this instance, it happened that it was happening in an area where there's a high percentage of people from the certain ethnic backgrounds. When the thing starts getting exposed by people that tell me, by people that know what's going on, who are they going to throw under the bus? They're going to throw the lower people in the corruption under the bus, who happen to be these members of these certain ethnic communities. Now, when Tommy is framing this stuff as like, oh, it's a targeted attack on British heritage stuff, bruv, come on, bro. He could have come out and used his voice and been like, the councils are trafficking children and covering it up and deflecting it onto Muslims. Yes, there's issues with cultural.
Bro, he went and put cameras in the councillors' faces. He asked them, why are you complicit? Are you a part of this? If you watch them videos,
okay, I need to watch it.
Yeah, mate. He went up to the chief police. He was off duty and he was walking around Asda or somewhere.
Where can I find it? Because I'll do a video reaction and put it on YouTube.
Britain, and there's about.
Oh, is that what it's called? Okay.
Yeah, and if you watch it, there's about 15. Mate, honestly, it's a good. You'd have to watch it over a couple of days, but I promise to watch number one, and by the end of it, mate, you will realise the scale of it. And it's not even him. It's the victim, the way they're telling him. And he explains, look, he says he does a proper investigation, yeah? And he says, I'm not just going to just go by hearsay, because that's not how we want to do this.
Yeah.
If this, he says at the beginning, if this victim or survivor, if she says this man's name, we're not just going to go chasing him, but we've got to see if we go speak to another girl who doesn't know this girl, so these two girls don't know each other, if she then mentions that man's name, then that's two people mentioning a man's name who don't know each other.
But did Tommy tell the public that the thing that united almost all of the cases, is that these children were in the care of the local authority? Or did he tell them that the thing that united a lot of these cases was that they were being abused by people of a certain ethnic background? Why didn't he focus on the fact that it was the local authorities involved?
But he did, bro.
And the fact that these children were in care? Because if you talk about
the only time he went to the men is to confront them at the end of each episode. Up until then, he was going for the police, the councils, he was chasing, doing undercover stuff, he was putting microphones, planting stuff, tracking cars. It's proper full in detail of
honestly, I need to watch it.
You would be shocked the level of investing, because he knows he's one wrong move on these and he's wrecked the whole cases. So he knew he had to do it very, very. Well, please watch it. We'll like further on.
Yeah, we'll double back and then we'll have another chat when I've watched it.
How long? I appreciate it, bro. Honestly, mate. But honestly, can I ask you, just before I leave? I'm going to ask you this question.
Yeah.
Because what's going on with the police and the government with you?
Yeah.
Is that one of the reasons you want to leave?
Yeah. But I already wanted to leave, but.
Okay, but that's kind of
bro, what they're doing to Tommy, I think what they've done to me is just as bad, if not worse. Like, they're covering up my daughter's death, bro. So, like, I know what he's going through. That's why I speak on it with confidence, because I've been through. I think what I'm going through is worse, to be honest. But like, that's neither here nor there. So,
well, listen, I'm sorry to hear that, and listen, I hope you get your justice. And yeah, man, keep going.
All right, respect, bro.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you, mate. Ta-ra.
Good chat. We're going to clip that one up and put that on. Everything now is going to be on YouTube. So I just really advise people, if you enjoy this live stream that I do, watch on YouTube. It's just as easy to watch on YouTube. If you've got YouTube Premium, you can watch it in the background. Let's see where we're at. So we've smashed our like target. We're almost at 20k likes. We've got 45 TikTok viewers. Let's see if anyone's watching live on YouTube now, because I do prefer people to watch on YouTube. We've got 7 viewers. Okay, cool. I like that. We're going to keep building it up. YouTube is the best place to watch. Michelle just lit me up with a donut gift. Appreciate that. So anyone who wants to request to debate, please do. While you guys do that, I'm gonna order some Uber Eats. Thanks for the gifts. We love the gifts. By the way, if you send gifts, you're able to do text to speech. So if you actually do send a gift and then you say something, it'll get read out loud. Someone said 60% of the US live paycheck to paycheck. Yeah, it would probably be the same in the UK. So if we want to get into the USA debate, we can do. We've got a lot of topics we can debate. We're talking free Lucy Letby. We had a lot on Tommy Robinson, so let's pivot from Tommy Robinson. We got the NHS corruption, we got free speech, and we got the USA's better than the UK. And we could talk abortion. We can do anything. Like, I'm here, bro. So I run this show. I'm running it on YouTube right now. My main goal is to blow up and act like I don't know nobody. No, I'm joking. My main goal is to build us up on YouTube primarily because I want to film. We're filming a documentary to expose corruption in health and social care in the UK. Part of that is going to be building a platform that's going to enable me to expose what happened to my daughter, Adora Maduwako, who was killed by Nottingham City Hospital, and they've covered up her death. So that's why we're building the platform. So any support is much appreciated. Gifts, likes. Our next like goal is at 20k. We've almost hit it, so that's really good. Guys, if you send gifts, like I say, you can do text to speech. You can contact me if you are a whistleblower. There's a link in our bio that you can press, and it allows you to send a form basically saying your experience as a whistleblower, whether you work for the police, the NHS, whatever. You can also donate to our cause by becoming a subscriber, and you can donate by the GoFundMe link. So we've already had like £250 in donations. Thank you to everyone that has donated. That is obviously going to go towards filming the documentary. We've also got over 100 people scheduled for interviews, the first of whom is going to be Mike Mizaros, who runs Carers on Competence, which has 30,000 followers on Facebook. So anyone who knows Mike, that's my dude, and I'm hoping to schedule an interview with him at some point. Regarding the Letby case, another person who's scheduled to interview is also Richard Gill. I don't know if you guys know Richard Gill. He is very well known. He's probably the foremost campaigner to free Lucy Letby. He's a statistician, a mathematics professor, and who's involved in Lucia de Burgh's conviction being overturned in the Netherlands. So very prominent individual. I had a very long conversation with him. I told him my story. We discussed some of the statistical errors in the case. We discussed my case and the motivations of the state to cover up, obfuscate, frame, and the current state of the UK population. I didn't record it, but hopefully we can get a recorded conversation with Mr. Gill at some point. Shout out to Mr. Gill. There's a lot of us. It's not just me. We've got a little army building. And a lot of these issues kind of overlap. It might seem like I'm trying to do a whole rage bait thing, but these issues to me are the core issues in the UK because they are an indictment of the current state of the UK. Thank you for following Official Jace. So while I'm waiting for anyone to request, I just want to start watching Tommy Robinson Speaks for the first time upon prison release. So guys, request to join if you want to join. I will respond to the comments too, but because nobody's requesting to speak right now, I think it'll be a good time to watch Tommy Robinson say his little piece. In fact, let's put him on for the YouTube viewers. So YouTubers, if you're watching on YouTube, you can also see the video I'm about to watch right now. So if you want to watch, go on YouTube, you'll see what I'm reacting to.
Have a watch.
Placed on Tommy, so my microphone's so you can hear Tommy in the background.
Oh, what's up?
He's now walking out. You've been incarcerated in this
my lefty, I
horrible
love
place
this video.
since October. Can you tell me, first of all, how are you? How are you feeling, boss?
They're asking Tommy how is he feeling. He says feels good.
Unfortunately, in a country that doesn't believe in free speech, being a citizen journalist, this place is an occupational hazard. It's ridiculous. 16 years ago, when I first started speaking out against Islamic rape gangs that were plaguing this country, from that point on, I faced relentless attacks from the British state, wielding lawfare as a weapon in order to silence me.
So Tommy's basically saying that free speech is dead in the UK, and he's saying that they're using lawfare to silence him for the people that are watching on TikTok. What's up, Helen? How you doing? Louis says insanity. Oh, yeah, people don't know that. I don't know. They probably haven't been following the Letby case. Scary times.
I've never been convicted by a jury. Every one of my convictions have been handed down to me by judges. The lucky thing with this Everyone got to see the film.
Oh my gosh, thank you guys so much for
I have to say
10k
thank you to
likes.
you.
Oh, 10k likes.
And another 10k likes and another 10k likes. We need more. 1776 now, baby.
That's a 20k like thingy.
Elon Musk, because without X, if we didn't have X, everyone would just think I lied. No one would have got any other narrative.
Okay, we're getting too much.
Fortunately, I think, what was it, 167 million people saw the truth. So that gagging order, these attempts at censorship, to silence, to cancel people, it hasn't worked. You've attempted to lock up the truth.
Oh my God.
And that truth has been echoed around the entire globe. It couldn't have been any more successful. I knew exactly what I was doing when I released that film. I knew I'd end up in there.
Oh, so the guy was right that we just spoke to. He said that Tommy knew he would end up in prison. So I guess I was wrong. If he deliberately ended up in prison, then yeah, put his target on his own back. True, but he is being targeted, obviously.
I also knew they'd give them every opportunity to pull every trick they wanted to, from messing with visits to messing with phone calls to messing with food. I knew that. But I made the decision to release that film because the British public deserved to see the truth. For too long, since the start of my activism in 2009, police raids, court cases, I actually thought when I walked out of here this time, it would be the first time since 2009 that I haven't been awaiting trial or prison. And bang, I'm awaiting trial and prison on multiple cases again now. But I've watched from the start of my activism, first of all I saw Geert Wilders. Geert Wilders was targeted with hate speech laws and prosecution.
By the way, can you guys hear Tommy speaking on YouTube, on TikTok? Can the TikTokers hear his voice through my earphones? That feedback, man, Jesus.
Here's the playbook that's played out across the entire globe. If we look in America, look what they've done to Steve Bannon. Look what they've done to Alex Jones, £1 billion. Donald Trump would face the rest of his life in prison if he did not win that election. Look now recently with Marie Le Pen. They've stopped their standing. Look at Katie Hopkins in our country. They took her home. They took her family home. Lawfare has been waged against anyone who has challenged the globalist narratives. Challenge open border, challenge mass immigration, even challenge vaccines, any of it. They come at you from every angle. That's what I've experienced, but fortunately, if Elon Musk did not purchase X, I don't think that people understand the importance of it. If he didn't, you'd have been lied to about this entire case. If you go on my Wikipedia page and read all my previous convictions, this would have been another one where they'd have told you I lied. What did you see? If you're one of the people that watched that film, you might not have believed me before, you may have hated me based on a narrative spoon-fed to you by a media who want to tell you who we are, they want to tell you how to think, and I knew in that documentary, that painted a far bigger story than me. That was a story of any whistleblower, anyone. You've seen in my film how they silence people, NDAs, bullying, intimidation, scare tactics, and even attempts at prison. But one positive, even General Flynn, look what they've done to General Flynn in the United States. Everyone has faced it, but I'd like to take a positive rather than continue negatives. What is the positive? Did their gagging order work? Did it work? 167 million people saw that film. Do you know the moment I had in the first week of January? Because this could have gone the other way. That I could have released that film. They could have managed to.
That's. Yeah. So all I was gonna say is that he's come out looking like a prophet or something. I don't know why I'm getting so much feedback. Hello. Yeah, he's come out swinging, looking like a prophet, man, and it's crazy. It's good. I don't know if you guys can hear me on YouTube still, but I'm still playing around with the audio. I'm getting a lot of feedback, but we're slowly tweaking all the settings to improve everything. So bear with me, but I just want to continue listening to Tommy for a sec.
Centric, which they did off all other platforms. There's only X and Rumble. They're the only ones that they're not able to control. If Elon hadn't have bought it, no one would have seen that film. Everyone had been lied to, but instead 167 million people saw the truth. You saw how they weaponised the judiciary. You saw the corruption, the blatant evidence of the corruption that no media, no journalists have spoke about. And then the Attorney General made it clear I was going to face continued prosecutions. I would have had indefinite prison sentences for a film as a journalist. But the best moment for me when I was in there was when I heard that Elon Musk had shared the Rape of Britain documentary. The Rape of Britain documentary series is the most important. They'd successfully, for decades, covered it up. Who had covered it up? Politicians, police forces. In every constituency where those gangs had raped, they'd successfully managed to cover up. Now, the truth is out there. There is no amount of lawfare that can keep it hidden. Everyone knows what's happened.
If you remember, Tommy, the last time I saw you was on the 6th of January when I visited
At Harris
this prison,
_M, join the chat and voice your opinion.
I was with someone else, and if you remember, Elon Musk had chucked Nigel Farage under the bus, and you were so elated and you were happy, and at that time you was in segregation. Since then, people have moved into the same unit you were in. How has that affected you?
So I haven't seen anyone who's moved into that unit. So when I come into this prison, there was they give me 40 cells. So we keep hearing about prisons being full.
Oh, okay. Yeah, for everybody on TikTok right now, we're listening to a video of Tommy Robinson. I'm just learning to understand my little things. But yeah, I can... If you want to see what we're watching right now, you can go on our YouTube at State of Deception and you'll be able to see what we're reacting to.
When I landed, I had 16 cells, and then I was taken to... Do you know what I've done? I've had the best opportunity. I've had 7 months of interviewing staff. Yeah. I've been on the separation centre. That's where I was having my days. When you come and visited me, it was the first week of January, right?
That's correct.
I was elated because I knew that this had been successful, that the public had seen the truth, that they could be lied to no more, that more people around the entire world were talking about the rape of a generation of our daughters, which has been facilitated and accommodated.
Court charged with an offence. And what do you have to say to all of those people who will be coming down on the day to support you?
You saw how they politicised the courts and the judiciary against me, but what you saw last summer was Keir Starmer, and it's now been proven as lies. When the riot started, Keir Starmer came out and said it was the far right, it was the English Defence League. That's what the police and the government had said. Now, we now know it's proven there was no far right, there was no English Defence League. The English Defence League ended a decade before it. But what the bigger picture is that the mainstream media act as a weapon of our state. So when Keir Starmer said that, journalists from the Daily Mail travelled to my family holiday, where I was with 3 or 4 other innocent families enjoying a break. They photographed my family. They ran a headline saying, instigating riots from his sunbed. Now, everyone knows I didn't instigate riots. There's no truth in that. But as the government was spreading one lie, the media stepped in to push that lie to the whole world. 10 million views that had. When that article went out, they photographed my children. They photographed my ex-wife. My family have death threats and serious threats of harm against them. They gave the location of where they were. That's not journalism. It's harassment, it's persecution, and they put a target on my family's back. And at that time, when they were blaming the far right, everyone saw how the courts were weaponised over a 48-hour period, where angry British citizens, justified anger, because £15 billion has been spent housing men who have invaded this nation. Many of them have left those hotels to rape, commit terrorism, sexually assault.
Let's get back. Yeah, hi YouTube, hi TikTok. So I'm just going to pause it there because he's saying that word a lot, and I think it's a bit too sensitive for the TikTok algorithm.
So the public are angry.
So let's just pivot from Tommy there, and we can also talk about a certain Lucy Connolly. So I wanted to play actually what Katie Hopkins is saying about.
I wanted to
about Lucy Connolly. Now people are going to think
I
I'm like
wanted
a
to
far
address
right
the
kind of person, so-called far right, because of the subject matter that I'm covering. But I'm not necessarily supporters of these people. It's just they're telling the truth. So this is what Lucy Connolly also has to say about another supposed hostage of the British state, another person being targeted for their political opinion in the United Kingdom, which is now becoming a very common thing. And people pretending like because they're talking about race that they deserve it. No one should be being targeted for their political opinion. So let's listen to what Katie Hopkins is going to say about Lucy Connolly. Lucy Connolly is the woman that made the statement about set fire to the buildings, contain them for all I care. So this is Katie Hopkins on Lucy Connolly.
Case of Lucy Connolly. I wanted to address the case of Lucy Connolly, the British mother who is in prison for a single tweet. As many of you know, Lucy has just been to the courts to appeal against her sentence, 31 months, for a single tweet. And I believe as of today, she's done 284 days in prison for a single tweet that was deleted. And personally,
Red Fraggle says her tweet was horrendous though. Well, the thing is, I don't think she should have pled guilty because what she did was actually not really well, it wasn't a crime in my opinion at all, but she would have beat that conviction if she didn't plead guilty. Now, the issue is that the whole public was prejudiced about it. So she didn't get a fair trial. Well, she didn't get a fair legal, her legal case wasn't fair. And what she said actually is not a crime. But if she pleads guilty to it, then obviously she's going to be put in prison. She said set fire to the buildings containing them for all I care, which means in English, it means I don't care if you do that. It's not a crime to say I don't care if you hurt someone. She didn't incite any violence because that violence happened irrespective of what she did, and she deleted the tweet. So there's no reason for this individual to be in prison at all.
I don't care what your opinion was about the tweet. I don't care for the people who say it's a terrible tweet, but I've no time for that. It was a tweet on Twitter, which is a cacophony of noise at the best of times, and she deleted it. There is absolutely no reason for her to be in prison under any rational argument. What you saw after the Court of Appeal was instead of Lucy being released on that day, which would have been absolutely appropriate, the Lord Justice had to go away and have a little think about what he was going to do. And that is a clear indication that he's not deciding on the basis of facts placed in front of him or on the basis of law. He's being told what will be best for the British government. The next thing is that people that still believe in the law will try and rationalise it. So they'll say things like, Lord Justice Holroyd, whatever he's called, the justice that decided Lucy wouldn't be released, released Lord Nazir Ahmed 3 years.
Yeah, that's what you're doing, Red Fraggle. Think about that.
Years early. Lord Ahmed, yeah, a Lord Ahmed.
Again, you see how these people are like, why does it matter if he's a Lord Ahmed? Like, come on. This is what... Anyway.
Raped a 9-year-old. But this same...
Yeah, too many naughty words. Please don't say naughty words, Katie.
They're releasing actual criminals from prison early to clear space in prison. And the problem with this way of thinking is you're trying to rationalise the irrational. It leads to an easy conclusion, two-tier Kia. But it's actually much more sophisticated than that. It's not that you can't just rationalise the irrational. It's much darker than that again. Because you get to a place where you realise the law is not the law.
Yeah.
The Lord Justice didn't get to be Lord Justice just by dispensing something according to some ancient book that he dusts off and decides what his opinion about the law is on that day. It's a tool of the powerful to control the ordinary. And I learned this lesson
100%.
a long time back. In fact, case law that's being used in this case was created, fabricated just for me in order to take my home, all of my savings and force me to near bankruptcy. That says damage is done at the time of publication, and if you perceive you are harmed by a tweet, that's enough. You don't have to prove it. That was made up especially for me and is being used now. So
ridiculous.
The day you find out the law is not the law is not actually a great day, because you realise there's no justice. And I don't mean that in a, oh, there's no justice in this world. I just mean it in a very literal sense. There is no such thing as justice that will be served through the courts. There is other justice, but that's a different matter. And there is no such thing as the law is the law, which also means you can't appeal to anything. You can't appeal to rational, because rational doesn't exist, because the law is a tool of the powerful. And that's a horrible day. I had my day with that probably a decade or so ago. And the thing that I think is being missed when people just shout two-tier Keir, which has become a sort of throwaway phrase, or queer Keir or whatever, is Lucy Connolly is not a prisoner. Lucy Connolly is a hostage. She is a hostage being held by the British state. Lucy Connolly is a hostage of the British government. And there is a specific reason that I say this. Lucy Connolly is being used as the whipping boy. She has been put in the stocks in the public square for all to see. And when she's crying in court, appealing because of the horror, the daughter might not make it, still the government says to its hostage, you're going back to jail.
Yeah. The interesting thing about the Lucy Connolly case as well is that she also had a child unalived through medical negligence. So they're doing this to someone who's basically been through what I've been through. So to anyone that has any support for me or whatever and what we've been through, imagine if they then did to me what they're doing to Lucy Connolly. I wouldn't even be surprised if the reason why they're making such an example of her is because she went against the NHS and accused them of unaliving her child through medical negligence. Because we are like the number one targets, the people that attack and go against the NHS, because they're a corrupt criminal organisation. So I wouldn't be surprised if the reason why Lucy Connolly is being made an example of like this is because they were already just waiting for her to do something to get her back for the fact that they unalived her child and tried to cover that one up as well.
And it isn't about Lucy. It certainly isn't about a tweet. It's a message to the British people. You stay in your place. You keep your heads down. You stay compliant. You don't ask questions. You go to work. You pay your taxes. You pay your bills that rise every day. You pay for this. You pay for that. You don't have democracy, but you keep your head down. You nod along and you keep quiet. Otherwise, we will do this to you. And it is no coincidence that prison places are being cleared. It is no coincidence that another 1,000 places, makeshift temporary prison spaces are being created in readiness. And it is no coincidence that prison...
Yeah, I think people pretty much get the point with that. So let's get back to the typical running of the live. Let's go back to the normal thing for the YouTube viewers. Thanks for watching that so far. So we're almost at 30k likes, guys. Boost up the likes a bit more. We can hit our next like target. I'm gonna get a guest on. We got someone requesting, and let's see what they got to say. Oh, I don't know if that worked. I tried to accept you, guest, and it didn't work. Let's try you again. Hold on. Alfie Cornell, hope you can hear me.
Sorry about that, I left the app.
That's alright, what's up?
Hi man, I was just wondering, are you willing to debate on the abortion is murder?
Yes.
And I'm sorry, like, slight echo from you.
Right now?
I'm not sure. Very slight, it's not like full echo.
Okay, I can imagine what that would be, but let's try and persist.
Yeah, I'm just saying if my speech sounds off, it's because I'm like, hearing myself a little bit.
Okay.
I was just wondering, on what basis would you believe abortion? Sorry, are you defending or against the statement? I wasn't. I'm not clear from that actually.
So I believe that abortion is murder, and I don't believe it should be legal.
Okay, yeah. So, on what basis would you defend that?
I think just reality, science, everything that we know about biology, and then also even if let's just assume it's not, let's just say for argument's sake that it's not murder, it's clearly not a very nice thing, and so we definitely should be trying to reduce the amount of abortions that are happening, and there's no effort at all in the UK to do that. And the reason why abortion is such a prevalent thing is because the medical industry relies on aborted fetuses to make vaccines and to use in other forms of experimentation, and they use the organelles and organs of the aborted aborted fetuses in medical experimentation. It makes them billions of pounds. It also allows them to control how people act in the population, particularly women, because obviously it's not natural for people to want to unalive their own children, but when you have economic conditions how they are now and people think that that's normal, if they want to maintain a status quo, they need to maintain a way for people to not want to rebel against the system by saying, no, actually I'm going to have family life. So they have to normalize people unaliving their own children. So even if it's not murder, the current climate and the rhetoric around abortion definitely needs to change. And so I'm speaking up on behalf of the rational side, I believe.
Okay, I mean, I hear your point of view there. I mean, to begin with, the thing you said about embryos being used for research, etc.
Yeah.
I know where you're coming from with embryos and stem cell research, but from aborted fetuses?
Yeah,
I mean,
so
they're not attacked after abortion.
Yeah, so there's a deposition by someone called Stanley Plotkin. He's probably the foremost vaccine expert in the entire world. He's been responsible for a lot of oncovirus vaccines. He's basically been a consultant for almost every major pharmaceutical company. His name's Stanley Plotkin. He's also, I don't know if he's a Harvard graduate, but he's basically the world-renowned expert on vaccines. And he has a deposition that's about 9 hours long. And he goes into detail about how when a child is aborted, they use almost every organ from the child in medical experimentation, primarily to make vaccines. He goes into extreme graphic detail about it, and he's the most reputable person on vaccines probably in the world.
I mean, he hasn't been active in that research for a very long time. I mean,
are you sure about that?
Well, I mean, he was born in 1932.
Stanley Plotkin. Are you sure we're talking about the same person?
Stanley Plotkin.
Let's
yeah,
get
so
him
he was born in 1932. He's been an advisor on some boards since 2000, but he has not been an actual director and active medical professional.
It's still
in the last 25 years.
And for the past 25 years, people have still been aborting children. So he plays a pivotal role in this. He's still an expert on vaccines. He played. I'm reading his wiki now. It says played a pivotal role in the discovery of a vaccine against rubella virus. He's an emeritus professor of pediatrics. He's written a book on vaccines, and it's the standard reference book on vaccines. As of 2025, Vaccines is in its 8th edition. He's an editor with the Clinical and Vaccine Immunology, which is a peer-reviewed journal published by the American Society for Microbiology, and on and on. Other positions held, scientific advisor and co-founder of the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness and Innovations. So he basically works for the government. He's an adjunct professor at Johns Hopkins, member of the Center for HIV and AIDS Vaccine Immunology. I mean, he's been an executive advisor for Sanofi, professor of biology, medical and scientific director of Pasteur, Mary Connell. Is your argument that this guy's not qualified to speak about vaccines?
My argument would be that he's qualified, but he has not been an active medical professional.
That's a silly argument, bro. Come on, you can do a better argument than that. You can't question the guy's. You can't question whether he's qualified to speak about vaccines if his book is the standard reference on the topic.
Because that's talking about vaccines, but what you're talking about is like first-hand evidence.
He did a deposition. No, I'm saying he is the guy that testified before Congress explaining how every organ from an aborted fetus is used in medical experimentation.
Deposition summary BMJ here. Conflict of interest must be properly disclosed. Wait a second.
Yeah.
I'm
so
going over.
It is a matter of fact that aborted fetuses are used to make vaccines. It's a matter of fact.
Yeah, I'm just looking for the actual words on that.
Someone said Yeah, that's fine. While you look, someone's on about Lucy Letby said, keep her in prison, put Tommy back in. Free speech doesn't mean free from consequences of said speech. Well, the whole point about free speech is that the consequence of your speech shouldn't be being put in prison. That's literally the whole point. So that's what we mean when we're talking about free speech. And I'm sure you know that. You just, you're a tyrant. You have the mindset of a tyrant. So that's why you believe people who don't agree with you should be put in prison and be kept away from their children, their lives should be ruined, and they should be unable to be employed simply because they disagree with you politically. You are a tyrant.
I'm not saying I disagree, but we don't actually have the freedom of speech in this country. I'm not saying that's...
Yeah, we don't have freedom of speech, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's,
good.
Whatever.
Yeah, because it's not
justified.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, legally, they can do what they want in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah. John's best friend says Tommy committed a crime, contempt of court. Yeah, but he's still being targeted. That's why when he came out, they're trying to now charge him with harassment. And harassment, the protection from harassment 997 or 998, I think, needs to change as well. That's just... I mean, the way that these people are, they spin a web and the public buy into the things that they do. And everything they do is designed to target and silence people that tell the truth. And you guys just buy into it and go, oh, but it says you want a piece of paper. No, they're still targeting him. Anyway, Alfie's getting up. I mean, do you think that's okay that aborted fetuses are used in medical experimentation? And do you see that that's an incentive for them to keep doing it? Keep having abortions?
The use of that is from his original development of the rubella vaccine in the 1960s. He didn't say anything about more recent uses.
Yes, he did. I've seen hours and hours of the deposition. I've listened to about three hours of the deposition, and he goes into explicit detail. If you want, I can even give you the link so you can watch it yourself. You might not be able to find the full deposition on YouTube, but here it is. Deposition of Stanley Plotkin. It's 9 hours long.
Tether created the first stablecoin, a digital dollar used by 420 plus million.
I don't trust what, sorry?
Big retailers don't.
Would you trust NIH, the American National Library Standard?
I wouldn't say I trust them. I would take what they say and critically analyze it for as to whether it's true or not.
I mean, what I'd ask then is, how can you have a scientific basis on anything if you're not trusting peer-reviewed science?
Because science isn't about trusting peer-reviewed papers. Science is a methodology that you use to determine something that's most likely to be true.
And what?
I've never said I don't trust science. I am a scientist.
Yeah, but what are the steps of the scientific method?
So you have a null hypothesis, and once you have a null hypothesis, you try to disprove the null hypothesis. So the null hypothesis would be vaccines don't work, and then you would try to disprove that by proving that they do work, and proving that they work, in my opinion, should include not only proving that they prevent the illness that you're suggesting that they do, but also that they don't increase your likelihood of mortality or harm from other conditions, and that has never been proven. And I think also fundamentally, when you talk about vaccines, first they have to prove that the virus that you're vaccinating against is actually the cause of the condition, and that for no vaccine has been proven either.
Yeah, my main point there is that for any academic paper, like if we want to have academia and education, we've got to be able to review people's findings, and we've got to be able to peer review it. How can we have that process if you don't trust them?
They can do what they want. They can, if people want to rely on peer review papers, that's fine. I can understand the purpose of peer review, but that doesn't mean that that justifies aborted fetuses being used for vaccine experimentation. I don't see what the connection is between my critique of a popularly held position and why that means abortion is okay.
No, my point is that because it's like, I mean, I often take a more philosophical standpoint, but because it can be an inherently medical discussion, talking about where you get sources and what sources you trust is important.
I've just given you the foremost expert in the world on vaccines, telling you how vaccines use aborted fetal tissues.
Yeah, but why would we ever trust one person over
Riley, you're wrong about that. because you're contradicting yourself. On one hand, you're saying that we should trust the experts and trust peer-reviewed papers on topics, and then when I give you the foremost expert who has peer-reviewed papers on vaccines telling you what the aborted fetus tissues are used for, you're pretending that that's not a good enough source for you.
The use of the embryos in vaccines, is that in a peer-reviewed paper? You said it was in the deposition. There's no
It's in a
paper on it.
It doesn't have to be in a paper because that's the same guy. He's testifying before a court.
Well, that's like saying that if I have one peer-reviewed paper and then I make a deposition on something, and therefore the deposition is true because I have a peer-reviewed paper.
I'm not saying that it's true because he has a peer-reviewed paper. I'm saying that he himself is telling you that that's what the aborted fetuses are used for, and he is the foremost expert. So if you need a reputable source, he would be your reputable source. Are you like, I don't understand why you're debating something that is obviously true. Nobody denies that this happens. I'm just using it as an example of why abortion is wrong and why the medical industry wants people to have abortions, because they have a vested interest in people having abortions.
My point is that we don't normally take one person's like.
Oh my god, bro! Are you going to present an actual argument, or are you just going to keep saying you don't believe Stanley?
No,
if you don't believe Stanley, that's fine. But that is what aborted fetuses are used for.
Sorry, go on. Do you believe the children before birth have the same moral weight as anyone after birth?
What do you mean by moral weight?
Moral value, as in, when you say abortion is murder, we consider it murder in the same sense that we consider murder for someone who is born.
No, I don't think that it's the same as murdering someone that's born, because of the duress factor. So a woman who has a child, who's with child, is under significant duress because the child is dependent on her for resources. So I think that is a mitigating factor when it comes to whether it's what the culpability of the woman is, but it's still murder by definition. So it is murder by definition, but I don't think that they should get the same conviction as somebody who murders someone that's living. It's almost like, I look at it like, if somebody murders somebody who has been abusing them or something, I look at it like that, not because a child is abusing their mother when they're in the womb, but because in both cases there would be a person under duress and make them more likely to do something to harm the thing that is putting them under duress. But that's neither here nor there, because by definition it is murder.
Yeah, to be honest, that question wasn't a point of debate. That was more just, there's so many different standings on where people come from this. I just need to know your point of view.
Sure.
From that point, how would you differentiate a fetus before having capacity for consciousness from a brain-dead patient?
Well, fetus has more capacity for consciousness because they have more inherent potential, because they are going to be born and then grow into a human being and have a full life experience if they're not killed. And in order for them to be killed, in order for them to not have that happen, they have to be murdered.
So you're using potential there, because obviously before they develop parts of the brain which can capacitate consciousness.
They already have consciousness, but I'm saying that they have more of a potential to have the life experience that the person who's on life support would have already had. In other words, a child has more potential than an old person.
Why does potential matter in a ethical and legal conversation?
Because the potential of a fetus to have a subjective human experience is what makes it human. And so in that regard, it's the same as any other human life. And there's no other thing on earth other than a fetus or an embryo or a human being that has that potential to have a human life. So that's what unites. That's what makes it murder. That's what makes it a fetus essentially the same as a full-grown human in that regard. Is both have the capacity to have a subjective human experience.
Okay, so in that standing, if we had a fertility drug that had 100% chance of an embryo being able to be, implanted, conceived, whatever, if someone has sex, would that mean that they're withdrawing those children from having potential human life if they choose not to have sex?
Well, a zygote doesn't have the potential to have a subjective human experience, but an embryo does.
Oh,
So
sorry.
once
So
at conception, once the embryo is formed, then it is a human. Then has that same potential that a human being has. But a sperm or an egg does not have the same potential to have a subjective human experience that as an embryo does.
well, if there were drugs which gave a 100% fertility chance, they would have that potential, would they not?
Are you saying in future they would have that? Because
Yeah, like this is
post-conception.
Not.
Yeah, but it would
This
still
is-
be post-conception. So if it's post-conception, then yes, the life shouldn't be taken.
Well,
Ideally.
No, my point there is that if there was a fertility drug, the only thing that could do that, the only thing that's stopping these eggs and sperm from having potential human life is people choosing not to have sex.
No, it's the fact that conception hasn't taken place yet. So they
What
don't.
difference does that make?
Because conception is the point at which it becomes the entity that has the potential to have a subjective human experience. That is the difference between the sperm and egg and then the embryo, is that once the embryo forms, they then have the capacity to have a subjective human experience. So it doesn't matter what the potential likelihood of them becoming an embryo is prior to conception, because following conception is when they have that uniqueness.
Okay, sorry. I mean, a lot of people make the argument of like flow or whatever. I thought you were going for that one. I'm guessing you're slightly different from that argument there. So embryos have the ability for. Sorry, what was your words? Like consciousness.
So they have the capacity to have a subjective human experience, and that's what unites all human beings. So they are essentially human in the same way that every other human is human.
So how is an embryo? Is it 10 weeks for an embryo? I thought it's a zygote up to 9 weeks. Or is that really wrong?
I mean, what do they call it after conception? Have I got the wrong word?
Well, there's, I think, is it embryo?
I'm talking about after conception. What is a name called immediately post-conception?
Well, zygote is after conception.
Is it after conception? Oh, I was thinking. Yeah, sorry, I got the words wrong. I was thinking of the zygote. The zygote has a unique capacity, and then I'm thinking of what are the sperm and egg called? Is it gamete?
They are gametes, but the second they fuse, they become a zygote.
That's what I meant. Sorry, I said it wrong. So I was talking about gametes don't have the unique potential. The zygote does. So I did the words wrong. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering what happens from the second the egg and sperm fuse that gives a zygote the capacity for human experience.
It means that, mathematically speaking, that is the only thing that would have the potential, because it's like for example, if I have two components to make, let's say I've got a light here, yeah, I've got the frame of the light bulb, frame of the lamp, and I've got the bulb. If I don't put the bulb into the lamp, I can never have a lamp. It will never be a lamp. It will never be anything more than a bulb and a frame. So it's the same with becoming human. You can only become human once you have that fusion that enables you to have the potential of being human. But the individual components will never have that potential until there is that fusion.
Yeah, but I don't think potential is a good standing in which to hold a moral or ethical debate, because we don't hold that standing for anything else. It's treated especially for this. I mean, you couldn't use this in the criminal system, for instance. If
We
you
do.
had time travel. How do we use it in the criminal system?
If you unalive a pregnant woman, they will consider that you committed a double homicide.
Yeah, I mean that is a difficult one to be fair.
And that
I think
means that the potential is recognised. In fact, the courts do use potential in many different ways. For example, if you unalive someone, they consider the potential earnings that person would have had, and then they can compensate a person based on that potential. People consider the potential likelihood of a person committing a crime if they're or reoffending if they're going to be sentenced. So potential is used a lot in the courts to determine culpability and to determine culpability, as in the culpability of a person in with regards to the actions that they take. A person is more culpable if they prevent somebody else having their human potential expressed. That's the basis of what murder is. That's why it's wrong to kill people, because you prevent them from having their subjective human experience. Otherwise, why is murder wrong? It's only wrong for that reason, because of you taking someone's potential away from themselves and from their family, their own subjective experience and their experience that they would have given their family. Thereby, you're doing the same thing to them when you murder them as an adult that you're doing to zygote when you murder it in the womb.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point.
And that's why an ectopic pregnancy being removed is not murder, because it doesn't have that potential, because it would never have been able to become a child. In other words, it's essentially dead already, because it can never. It's like put it this way: if a woman has a miscarriage, that child and the child comes out and cannot be saved, then it's not murder, is it? Because nobody could have done anything to prevent that outcome. So an ectopic pregnancy, a miscarriage, those are not murder, because you're not intervening to prevent that thing having its subjective human experience.
Yeah, my issue is still that what changes from the second before the egg and sperm connect to when they fuse afterwards, because if we did have a fertility drug, for instance, that would absolutely guarantee that they could fuse.
Yeah.
Not taking that fertility drug would be denying a future human life.
Not necessarily, because it would still be a matter of choice for the person. It's like that fertility drug would be like basically having S with 100% chance of pregnancy. The same thing that applies to having S would apply to that, in that you have a choice whether you want to have S. Subsequent to you having S, it's highly likely, and in the case of your fertility drug, it would be 100% likely that the zygote is going to form. So it would almost, in your argument, it would almost be like saying, is it wrong to prevent people from having S, thereby preventing them from being able to have a child? And the answer is obviously yes. So if everybody, was born and they were...
At Riley Kirkpatrick, that's currently happening in America.
If everyone was born and they were born and the fertility drug just runs through their veins and there's always a 100% chance of having a child when you have S, then the argument would then move to be, if you prevent someone from having S, is that wrong? And the answer would be yes, because if S had a 100% chance of resulting in a child and you prevented someone from having S, you would thereby be preventing them from having a child, which would be wrong. Do you get it?
Yeah, I'm understanding your standpoint.
Yeah.
I still don't completely agree, but I think that's one more option.
Do you think that abortion is wrong? Do you think it's like a necessary evil, or do you think that it's not wrong at all?
I think that I personally hold it on the same moral standpoint as a brain dead patient. It's sad and it's not something to be taken lightly.
Yeah.
But it's still morally acceptable, if that makes sense.
Okay, I see why you think that. I just disagree.
I mean, I hear a lot of people using the argument, for instance, that miscarriages, people are sad afterwards. It shows the the connection with the baby that a mother should have, whatever. But I think for instance, I think that's a sort of biased opinion, because if a mother is having a miscarriage at all, they obviously didn't want an abortion, so they wanted to keep the baby, which is why they're mourning it.
Yeah, but you know that even a significant number of women that have abortions regret it, and they're also more likely to commit S, they're more likely to have mental health issues, they're more likely to use drugs. So it has a very negative effect on the woman as well, which also implies that they feel some kind of negative way about what they do when they have an abortion anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously an easy way to feel guilt. I would also say that that's not completely causative data, because people who are needing to have abortions are more likely to be in those mental health situations.
Not really. Yeah, that's not true.
Well, if someone needs to have an abortion...
You're saying that the reason why that could be is that people who have abortions are more likely to be in situations where they have serious mental health. But we can see that people who have abortions span all kinds of different demographics, class statuses, or whatever, so to speak, income levels. So I don't think that's a strong argument to say that they're only feeling bad after having an abortion because they were more likely to have mental health issues anyway.
Well, yeah, I'd say that as much as abortion, it's almost certainly as often that someone doesn't want children. It can just as easily be, I'm not ready to have children because of someone's environment and situation they're in, and therefore abortion is more likely in people that are in environments where they can't have children. And support them properly and raise them properly.
I understand the motivation behind it, but that doesn't mean that the act is okay. The act should be mitigated by the people, in my opinion, because that's who administers the law. I think that we should come up with new legislation. I think if somebody's essayed, they should have to appeal to the court and give...
Tap the screen for the live hit the heart me.
Do you think that's an appropriate thing to be putting essay victims through?
If they want to kill their child, yeah.
So someone who has been assaulted and will be undertaking serious mental issues, mental issues are a bad choice of words, isn't it? But will be having a lot of mental weight upon them, then putting them through that
wouldn't really be putting them through much. They would just have to apply to the court for an emergency court order, and if they put a formal allegation of having been AR'd in, and if possible name the person who did it, then I think that it should be granted.
Yeah, so you're making a lot of people that don't want to relive it go through it again.
Not really. They could just fill out a form, or their lawyer could fill out a form on behalf of them. Like when you go for an abortion anyway, it's quite an involved process. Like you go, you sit down, you have a consultation, you speak. You still have to relive. If you've been AR'd, you still would have to relive it to have an abortion. You go to the clinic, and I mean, unless you do it through telemedicine. But do you not think that there should be some kind of consultation or thought process that a person goes through before they have an abortion? Should they not think about it? Should they not have to consider whether they want to do it?
I think that it's sad and that there is, I wouldn't say moral issues, but there's moral weight to it.
I see what he's trying to say, but it also holds the offender accountable.
Sorry, let me think through my words. I know a point, I'm trying to put it in a sentence.
You do seem to think it's a necessary evil. You don't necessarily, like, have you got kids, for example?
No, I'm 19.
Okay, but like, if you had a child, you wouldn't want your child to have an abortion. Ideally, you'd want her to not have an abortion.
Yes.
Yeah, so you kind of see it as a necessary evil in a sense.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I don't know if I'm going to necessarily change your mind, but thanks for coming up and speaking. I think I'm going to wrap the live up because we've been going for 2 hours. That seems like the right amount of time to do a live for. I've experimented a bit. Thank you everyone that's watched today. The live views fluctuate a lot on TikTok, but we've got everything. It's all going to be available on YouTube, so this live is going to be up on YouTube. You guys can watch it. And in a few days, or maybe today, I'll start clipping up everything, and you will start seeing the clips from previous lives and etc. posted on YouTube. So I think that was really good. It allowed me to kind of play around with how the audio settings are. Thank you everyone for joining the live. You know, if I'm live for 2 hours, eventually we're going to lose numbers and stuff like that. Let's get some of the YouTube comments actually, because I'm loving the support on YouTube. So someone said,
Had Lola B come back later and hear the discussion.
Someone said, my point is abortion may be sometimes necessary. Another example, if the mother's life is high risk and she goes ahead with the pregnancy. Yeah, so those exceptions, I believe that there should be a mechanism for someone to make a formal application to have an abortion. But the problem is people act like you shouldn't have to go through any process, and I don't think that's right. I think the US states that ban abortion have it right, because you can still have an abortion in all of those states. You just have to apply to the court. And you can also go out of state or to another country. I think it shouldn't be so easy. And people will always do it if they want to do it, but it still shouldn't be easy. Lola B says, how do I get my account back? Oh, I'm connected to 1 or 2 people. You know what I mean? I didn't think I was going to get my account back, but yeah, I know someone that knows someone that works at TikTok, so I was able to get my account back. Can't lie, a lot of this is spot on. What metrics do you measure the US against UK? Aha! You're going to have to come back for that. Emma says in life-threatening situations, you don't have the time to apply for the courts. That's not true. There are emergency child protection orders where you can get a court order on the exact same day. That's how children are removed when their life is at risk. They put an emergency protection order. You can actually go to a court and get an emergency order without going through the court proceeding and then have it retrospectively signed off on. So it is possible to get an emergency court order the same day. And obviously currently you can... in the UK, you can get an abortion up to 24 weeks. So you have 24 weeks, technically, to apply to the court to get a same-day emergency protection, emergency abortion order, if such thing existed, that I propose should exist. Emma said, why are women dying in America? Because doctors are scared to be prosecuted. They're not. They're dying of medical negligence, and then miscreants are misrepresenting what's happening to encourage women to be pro-abortion, and it's wrong what they're doing. Someone said, other things listed what you're debating or believe to be the case. That's what my opinion is, all of those things. So we've gone to Jeanette. Wesley said, didn't mention Lucy was on tranquilizers during the theatrical trial and documentary. Sadly, cruel treatment without cause. I didn't know that. I need to look that in. Jeanette says, agreed, abortion should not be used as a way out. And on that note, guys, thank you very much. We're going to end the live there. We'll be back again tomorrow. Take care. And you guys know on YouTube, you guys always get the little outro after the outro. So thank you for joining us on YouTube. We had 42 views. That means I guess 42 people came on to watch. That's really good. So we're on the road to, I think 1,000 followers is probably my next target. Let's see how many followers we've got right now on YouTube, or subscribers. 182. So, 2 subscribers from a live. Can't complain. But guys, these are rookie numbers. We want to boost and become the biggest show on TikTok, don't we? Okay. Thanks, YouTube.